Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. The indispensable Geraghty is in the house. Jim Geraghty of National Review. Jim, we got to cover 3 things in 2 segments, so we got to go fast. First important thing. My great and good friend Glenn Byers reminded me today that today is the 60th anniversary of the death of Winston Churchill. If you've been to Westminster Palace, Westminster Cathedral, that palace, you walk into the Palace of Westminster and you see a green marble slab that simply says, "Remember Winston Churchill." He's not buried there. I've been to his burial place as well. Did you know that, and what do you think of that?
I did not. I don't remember seeing that. I don't know if I ever went through the tour of Westminster. I did go to the Cabinet War Rooms, which
great.
was utterly awesome. And if you ever go to London, this is the map rooms. This is where they were basically planning and operating World War II in London as the bombs were coming down on them. And it was like walking into history, and you just feel like you're right back there. And as I understand it, Hugh, his bust is back in the Oval Office again. Huh?
It is indeed.
Yeah. They took out the one that was it Ward Churchill that Biden had instead. That's a deep cut reference for blogger
Nobody
fans
will get
going
that
back to the Bush
who isn't
days.
at least 50 years old, Jim. But that's fine.
Yeah.
All right, second question. The Buckeyes won the national championship on Monday. I'm still celebrating. I'm wearing my scarlet and gray tie today because it's still. Have you listened to Urban Meyer's Triple Option podcast with Mark Ingram and Rob Stone?
I have not. Now, my good friend and colleague Charlie Cook is a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, and I believe he currently believes that if he ever is in the same room as Urban Meyer, he will physically attack him.
He's wrong. He doesn't know the coach.
All right.
I want you to listen to Triple Option for an analysis.
He did a fantastic job over Jacksonville. Boy, oh boy, wow.
I'm talking college ball right now, college championship.
Okay.
When Urban describes coming back, what Ryan Day did to come back from the abyss. I mean, the abyss of college football is to lose to that team up north for the 4th straight time in the shoe, and then you beat the 4 great teams, including number 1. That's truly unparalleled in sports. Never happened before.
Yeah, by the way, I know everybody's complaining about the playoff schedule or the new playoff system, and it was a little weird that the highest ranked teams kept getting, losing after having a week off and all that stuff, but I think you had just a bunch of really good teams together, and sometimes one really good team is going to be considerably better. And yeah, it would have been great if we had a national championship game that went on to overtime or something like that. I think you could tweak the seeding and things like that. But I think this actually worked pretty well. The ratings were pretty good, and I don't see any reason why there's a need to go to scrap it, go back to the bowl system or anything like that. And I think 8 teams is plenty, by the way. I don't think we need to. Or actually, are we at 8 or 12
We're
now?
at 12, and they're talking about going to 14. I like 12.
Yeah,
I thought the system worked fine. Just
fine.
seeding. You're absolutely right. Over the target. The seeding needed. Now, Jim, the reason I really like it is not only did the Buckeyes win, but if you're a Browns or a Jets fan, you got games to watch in December, in January.
Very relevant. Yes.
All right, next question.
Doing scouting.
And most difficult one for Jim Geraghty, noted critic of Donald Trump, but occasionally a fair man about him. I mean, always fair about him. I would like to know what you think is
fair.
Yeah, the best. Tough but fair is fine. What is the best thing he said and the best thing he did in the first week of the golden age of America?
Okay, I'm going to do 2 actions because actions matter more than words. I'm going to go with one that was well noticed and one that is not noticed. The first is we're seeing illegal immigrants with criminal records getting loaded onto those planes and shipped back to their home countries. And I think after so long of seeing a lot of people in government make really big promises, Joe Biden promised he was going to cure cancer. Gavin Newsom said he was going to end homelessness in San Francisco. To see somebody in office say, I'm going to do this, and then it actually happens promptly and quickly. Besides the fact that this is good to see, I think it will have a deterrent effect. I think if you didn't get into this country by January 20th, you're probably much less interested in try to get in now. So that was the obvious one. I think the less obvious one was one I wrote about this week, the redesignation of the Houthis as a terrorist group. You want to talk about things that were kind of baffling. Now, when it became ludicrously obvious that taking them off the terrorist list of the State Department was an egregious mistake by Joe Biden, an effort to put a thumb in the eye of the Saudis that backfired in our faces. That basically, they had been on the special foreign terrorist organization left, and what Trump announced this week is they're not even special. that they're now just a regular, generic Diet Coke terrorist group. I'm very glad to see this. This is long overdue. I noticed the Houthis, released a couple of hostages that were not U.S. hostages, but they had seized the crew of a boat. And they said that this week they no longer intend to attack U.S. and British ships because of the Israel-Hamas deal that they have in the works.
Convenient,
now,
isn't it? Very convenient.
Yeah. Now here's the thing. They could be doing it for any old reasons, but you can't help but notice that this announced change in policy just happens to align with a different president in there, who is not doddering. And the other thing is I think Biden, basically gave one speech on each topic, and then he largely forgot about it. And then you just never heard from him about it again. And the U.S. Navy in the Red Sea and around the Gulf of Oman was basically having one of the most intense. This is not me saying this; is the Associated Press reporting from there, saying that this was the most intense naval fights that the U.S. Navy had seen since World War II. Hugh, how many major stories do you remember seeing on this?
Yeah, none.
Both Biden and Harris said during the campaign, U.S. forces were not in combat anywhere in the world.
None.
And that was a lie.
It was a lie.
So, yeah. So,
all right, now, Jim.
So those are the two things he did that are most important.
I got you for 5 more minutes, and part of it will be off air, but I want to set it up for the audience so they go listen to it on YouTube. There's a constitutional law case called Baltimore v. Barron, very famous from 200 years ago. Chief Justice Marshall writes, "This is a question of much importance but not great difficulty," or vice versa, great importance and not much difficulty. And it was a question about whether or not the Constitution covered the taking of property in Baltimore that done by Maryland. At the time, it didn't. Now I am personally happy that Donald Trump issued the Birthright citizenship EO because, contra what the district court judge in Washington State said, it's not settled law. I think it's an easy question, but it's never been decided, and I think they're going to decide 7-2, 8-1, maybe 9-0. If you're born in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States unless you're a child of an accredited diplomat. But I'm glad he's going to close the book. And I told Ro Khanna that yesterday. He said, oh, good spin. It's not spin. We need to shut the door on this. We're going to get Jim's response to that after the break. Go over to YouTube. I am back with Jim Geraghty, columnist for the Washington Post, a contributor at National Review. The Morning Jolt is a newsletter you must subscribe to. Also has 2 podcasts, 3 Martini Lunch, and frequent contributor to the editors. I recommend them all to you. Jim, what do you make of the citizenship at birth debate?
I think actually you characterized it pretty well, Hugh. Now, I'm skeptical that the Supreme Court is going to say you can redefine this by executive order. I think they're going to say, no, there's too much precedent on this that demonstrates, and you could make the argument of, whether there was such a thing as anchor babies or these other terms, this idea of the value of being born in this country. And my colleague Ramesh Ponnuru had the very smart observation that, like, what people get really angry about this, it's very rarely the idea that the child being born in the U.S. soil becomes an American citizen. It's that by them being born on U.S. soil, it makes it easier for everyone else in their family to get into the immigration process. That's what I think really, drives people nuts. But you look at the previous case law, not just this one. I believe it was a 1982 case, and Hugh, the case names better than I do. It basically said
the key one is Wong Kim Ark in 1898.
Correct, but there's another one from 1982 that basically said the 14th Amendment applied to school children in Texas who were basically illegal immigrants, right? So by that sense, the 14th Amendment does apply to illegal immigrants. Now, I think if the Congress passes a law and says, you know what, for purposes under the law, being born in the United States, if both of your parents are here in the country illegally, then no, you are not automatically a U.S. citizen. I think the Supreme Court might uphold that. And I'm not just saying
I don't, Jim. I want to make sure people aren't misled, because Section 4 of the 14th Amendment is for enforcement purposes only. For the purposes of the 14th Amendment, that's beyond clearly in 1868, they weren't thinking about illegal aliens having babies. And so I don't think Section 4 would reach that. It's been limited before. Right. But you're right to observe about Plyer. That is, again, these are decisions, both Plyer and Wong Kim Ark, on point but not dispositive. Let's just get it done. And the Supreme Court doesn't issue advisory opinions. He teed it up so that they would. You think they will? I mean, take it up?
Almost certainly. They've already had a challenge from the ACLU. But I was going to say that, Hugh, so is my understanding you correctly, it would require a constitutional amendment to change status.
Yes.
Okay. All right. If the Supreme Court comes out and says that, then I think that, there would be a significant push to do this. And here's my next question. could you then say, I imagine
done.
under U.S. federal law.
We're
Okay.
hard out,
All right.
Jim. God love you. Have a great
right.
weekend. Go Jets.